As it is, it's taken 15 years, and it's been the war, not Britain, that's forced the pace. Ian Smith has had to compromise. Those he once imprisoned are gathered to talk of peace, and behind the scenes the frontline states have clearly exerted a moderating influence. There have already been concessions on a new constitution. The agreement needed now is on arrangements for transition from war to peace.
Now, in the process of transference of power, it has to be recognized that the vicious force that minority has depended upon has to be demobilized, and a completely new force based on the fact that the people's interests have got to be safeguarded has got to emerge. We are not saying that only our troops must constitute the army. We are saying that alongside our troops there must come acceptable elements from the other side. And this will constitute the national army of the country. The Zulu Scouts have to go, the Grey Scouts, the mercenaries. These are the ugly features, the unacceptable elements which have to go of necessity. All those commissioned officers who have been ideologically committed to UDI and have supported treason have no right to be in command of a new army whatsoever.
You wouldn't be prepared to accept some sort of formula whereby Joshua Nkomo's forces perhaps looked after the western part of Zimbabwe, where your own Zanla forces largely looked after the eastern sector, and where there was some joint army in the central sector and around the towns like Salisbury?
We are thinking in terms of one army, and the Patriotic Front is going to emerge with one army. There will therefore not be any sector for ZAPO or a sector for ZANU. We are one, and that we shall remain.
Are you proposing to merge your two armies in the near future?
The principle is there, and it is our hope that very soon our two armies will constitute one force, as indeed our two commands have constituted one Joint Operations Command.
So what would happen if you get the free and fair elections that you ask for? Would you and Mr. Nkomo fight each other as rival parties, or would you stand on the same platform?
We have the Patriotic Front, and our hope is that we shall fight as one. We would like to constitute one front, and with just one leader campaigning as president of the front.
That will mean that someone will have to be self-effacing. Someone will have to take a back seat.
Well, this is what it means. It means that the people will have to make their choice in due course.
Would you be prepared to be a number two to Mr. Nkomo?
I'm prepared to be whatever the people want me to be.
A lot of viewers might find that hard to believe, might find it very hard to believe that a man who's fought for so long would be prepared to give up the fruits of power just at the point of achieving
them. We haven't been fighting for individual benefit. We've been fighting to get power into the hands of the people. In other words, we have been fighting a people's struggle. And in the course of fighting for this struggle, some of our leaders, colleagues have died. Others survive, but the people continue all the time. And so it's the interest of the people really that is the decisive factor. That's the paramount issue.
What transference of power there's already been to the people was scorned by the Patriotic Front, and the existing constitution's been rejected by the London Conference. Bishop Muzorewa is now Prime Minister, though effective power resides where it always did. But what if, even under a new constitution, the bishop was elected once again?
If the bishop won the elections, which are free and fair, you might as well consider the devil would win elections in heaven. We do not ever envisage a situation where the bishop could win elections which are free and fair. That can never happen.
But it's perhaps the principle rather than a prediction that I'm looking for.
The principle is there. Whoever wins the election naturally becomes a leader. Whichever party wins the election naturally forms the government.
And you would be prepared, just given that hypothesis, that the devil, as you put it, Mr. Muzorewa, were to win, you would allow the bishop to become, or to remain Prime Minister, as he would say it, and you would form a legitimate constitutional opposition in Parliament?
We are prepared that the bishop will not win. But if miracles happen and the bishop won, well, fine. He should lead the country. Why not? Yes, we are for a democratic system, and in a democratic system you have to accept, you see, the verdict of the people.
When I spoke to you in Maputo, you said that if the people were in favour, then you would certainly favour a one-party state. Now, how would you feel if Bishop Muzorewa were to declare a one-party state, having won an election?
Once again, if that is the verdict of the people, the decision by which we must abide.
And where would that leave you and ZANU supporters?
Imagine a situation where ZANU and ZAPU can lose. I think together we constitute the most formidable front of all the groups inside the country. Any possibility of our being defeated in any elections.
What some of us are fighting for is to see that this oppressive system is crushed. We don't care whether, I don't even care whether I would be part of the top echelon in the room. I'm not worried, but I'm dying to see a change that, you know, in the system. That's all. That's all. I would like to see the young people enjoying together, black, white, enjoying together in a new Zimbabwe. That's all.
Much will depend not just on what constitution is agreed in London.
The British government is biased in favor of the internal regime.
Are you then distrustful of Lord Carrington as Foreign Secretary and Mrs. Thatcher, the Prime Minister?
No, I'm not, but they have a political stand which favors the internal regime, and they as individuals are probably free of bias. Conservatives are obviously in favor of the regime, the present internal regime, continuing, and hence the attempt to lift sanctions.
Are you that this conference will succeed, that there is an end to the war in sight?
I think if we continue as we have started, the possibility of reaching a settlement is there, but we hope the sincerity with which Lord Carrington has so far handled issues and listened to our own criticisms and observations will help the conference to conclude a peace agreement.